If you live in Canada, you could become a chess bra though. Yeah, I'd rather stick a fork in my eye than be a chess bra. I made a promise to you guys that since I didn't cover the last couple of games and when I was in St. Louis due to the very bad connection with pretty mediocre sound and everything, I said that I would wait till I got home and then I would do some analysis on the game. So that is what I'm going to be starting with, you guys. So 30 seconds still counts as normal bullet. 30 seconds should be separate, without a doubt. 30-second chess should be they should make an umbrella of hyper bullet with 30-second, 15-second, 10-second, and all of that, as opposed to a considering it standard bullet. So all right, you guys, so without further ado, let's get the show on the road. We're gonna be starting with round 8. I played with White against Sam Shankland, the U.S. champion from 2018. I think when I did the last stream from St. Louis, I did it after round 7. So to put everything in perspective, first of all, thank you, McGurf, for subscribing with Twitch Prime. So when I last did a game analysis, it was after game 7, the game that I won against Varusian Akobian, and I believe after beating Varusian Akobian, at the time that put me on +3. I think I had 5 points out of 7. No, that doesn't sound right. How many points did I have after I played Varusian? I think when I played Varusian, that, let's see, beat Varusian, I beat who else did I beat? 1 second. Round 8 was a draw. I won 9-11, so that did put me on +3 out of 7. So yeah, so I was on 5.5 out of 7, I guess, then. Yeah, since anyway, yeah, so I was on +3. I think at the time I was half a point ahead of Lenier Dominguez. Half point ahead of Lenier Dominguez and Fabiano Caruana, I believe, at the time. So this was round 8, and in this round I was playing White against last year's US champion, the one and only Sam Shankland. For 5.5. Okay, I mean, I know that I was leading by half a point, but that much I know. So 55 out of 10, yes. Don't remind me about last night. That I'll probably never forgive myself for getting 54 right, having a minute or so, and then missing 3 in a row last night. I will never forgive myself for that. But anyway, so yeah, Clousy Boy, I did a puzzle rush last night at around 1:30 or 2 a.m. and I got 54 right in a row, and I had about a minute left, and then I missed 3 in a row. And the last one was really hard too, I think. So really tough, really tough problems at the very end there, but nonetheless, it happens. So all right, you guys, so without further ado, let's get the show on the road. So this was round 8. All of Florida heard the agony. They might have heard some of it, not all of it. So yeah, so all right, without further ado, let's get going. So this is round 8, my game with White against Sam Shankland. Going to this round, I believe I was half point ahead of Lenny and Fabiano. So important game with the white pieces. Thank you, JJ Dynasty, for subscribing with Twitch Prime. JJ Dynasty, I think I gifted a sub to JJ Dynasty earlier today on another channel, so it's good to see JJ over here in the chess channel now. So all right, so the game started d4, and with me being up half point over Fabiano and Lenny, I certainly wanted to take a shot with the white pieces against Sam, try and put some pressure on him. So the game went d4, d5, c4, c6, knight f3, knight f6, knight c3, d takes c4. Here I played a4. Club 54, very nice one, Vince Sildin, obviously referring to the very famous club in New York City from the 1980s, I believe it was, or late 70s. So all right, so the game, Slav, d takes c4, a4. XX Morphins, XX Mr. No Hands, XXX says, wow, does shaving shave years off? LOL. Apparently I look like I'm 17 again. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But yeah, I do look quite a bit younger when I shave off the beard. So all right, so dc4, I played a4, logical move. The other line you can play is something like e4, b5, e5, knight d5, a4, e6, knight g5. This is a very sharp line as well. White tries to play queen h5 and then play knight e4 and take advantage of these dark squares after black goes g6. But very sharp line, not completely clear. London System says, how long did it take me to grow that beard? Only about like 3.5-4 weeks, close to a month. I know that. So anyway, So e4 is another line white can play. White can also play e3, b5, a4, b4, knight a2. This is another line that's very popular. e6 takes, bishop c4, c5, bishop b7, knight d7, and bishop e7. And it's all pretty standard. Both e4 and e3 are playable. e4 is much sharper. A4 is obviously the old classic line that most people play. And here Sam played e6, which is a relatively new line. For many years, probably I would say for about 25-30 years, everybody played bishop f5, and the old lines went e3, e6, bishop c4, bishop b4, castles. Black can play either order of knight bd7, queen e2, bishop g6, for example. And after like rook d1, castles, e4, bishop h5. This is a very well-known line that has been played. Even I played this as black too. Vince Silden says the U.S. champion just said my name on TV. Wow! Hey mom, the U.S. champion mentioned my name on Twitch. Yes, Vince Silden, I did indeed mention your name. That was a very must be a big surprise for you. Hello, how's it going, Max Milnick as well. So bishop f5 is one of the old lines. Knight e5 though has become very strong in recent years. For a long time, I think in the early 2000s, everyone played this line with the piece sack. Takes, knight e4, bishop d2, queen d4, takes, queen e2, takes, queen d5, or not queen d4, queen d5. White can go king c2 or king c3. Normally it goes something like king c2, castles, knight c4, knight a6, and queen e5 or queen e3 here. Idea to play bishop e2. Thank you, Cope1, for resubbing 2 months in a row. So, all right. So, in this position, I didn't go for this, and Sam didn't either, because nowadays I think this line is considered to be slightly dubious for black with the piece sack. There are other lines too. After f3, black can also play something, or maybe not e6. Black can also play something like knight d7, takes, knight b6, knight e5, a5. And then after something like f3, e6, just e4, bishop e3, bishop d3, or bishop e2. And generally speaking, this is considered to be pretty pleasant for white as well. So for that reason, Sam didn't want to go for this, and he played e6 here, which is a new modern line. Here I played e3, keeping it simple. Sam did play this against me in the US Championship, I believe 2 years ago as well. He played the same e6 line. So it wasn't a complete shock, not yet at least, but I figured I would still keep it simple. e4 is the other line, and then I think it goes something like bishop b4, e5, knight d5, bishop d2, maybe b5, h4, knight g5. There's some rook h3 idea that was played by Morozevich a couple of times. I don't remember if it was exactly this position. And just to keep the feel authentic, you guys, I'm also I haven't actually done any review ahead of time for this analysis. I'm doing it just as I would have if the game had ended. So I figure that keeps it a little bit more authentic. So you're not going to be seeing some great novelties or some brilliant computer analysis the way that you might if I had chosen to look at it ahead of time. But I did not, because I figure it's better to try and do it the same way as I did during the event. So all right, so I did not play e4. I played e3. Sam played c5. Now the reason black plays c5 here is it looks a little bit silly, because this position, actually let me leave it here for a second. This position looks very similar to the Queen's Gambit accepted. So normally the way the Queen's Gambit accepted goes is d4, d5, c4, dc4, knight f3, knight f6, e3, e6, bishop c4, c5, castles, a6. So this is a standard position for the Queen's Gambit accepted. Now you'll notice in this position versus in the game, you see, so we have this position versus this position, and wrong one. We have this position versus this one, and you'll notice the difference is that white in this line has 2 extra tempos. So in the game, my knight is already on c3, and I've played a4, so white has 2 extra tempi versus the Queen's Gambit accepted. But the difference is that in this position, or not 2, sorry, black hasn't played a6, but usually you will. But you'll notice the difference is this pawn in a4. So normally the way I'd like to play this is something like knight c6, castles, takes, bishop e7, just an example, something like rook e1, castles, and maybe play for d5. But you'll notice with the pawn being on a4 here, I can never go a3 to kick the knight. The knight controls d5 very well here, and so I've got this isolated pawn on d4, which is a slight issue for white. Yeah, it's one tempo. The pawn's on a6. You're right about that. So all right, so bishop c4 takes, bishop e7, castles. The previous time I believe Sam had played, he had not played bishop. He had played with knight c6, I believe it was, instead of castling. So Sam surprised me by playing this line with castles here. So here I played d5. And the reason I played d5 is because in this position, it's a little bit hard to come up with ideas here. Wander Gizzle says, I guess you gave up on the Canucks cap since they missed the playoffs. I was wearing it regardless. I have not been following hockey super closely this year. Every single team that I liked pretty much sucked. The Rangers are in rebuild mode, so I've not been following the Rangers that much. The Canucks did okay. I don't think they were expected to make the playoffs, so they had a decent year. The Panthers were a disaster, of course, as well. The only other team that I kind of like that I think is going to make the playoffs is going to be the Colorado Avalanche. But I don't follow them anywhere near as much as the other three teams. So for that reason, I have not followed hockey that much. Try being a Kings fan, yeah, but the Kings won 2 cups. Come on, the Kings won twice. Come on, what kind of nonsense is that? You got to win twice with the Kings. That's nonsense. Anyway, so back to the game. So castles. So here I was looking at moves. Go Caps. Nobody likes the Capitals. Come on. Ovechkin, all he does is score goals. Guy doesn't know how to play defense. Anyway, I hate the Capitals, and the Rangers beat the Capitals like every year for a couple of years or so. It was truly glorious seeing the Capitals lose because nobody likes Ovechkin. Anyway, Caps, please. Blah. Anyway, okay, so Sam played castles here. And here I was trying to come up with an idea besides playing d5. Wander Gazelle says, try being a Leafs fan, no cup for 50 years. Yeah, well, I mean, nobody likes the Toronto Maple Laughs. I mean, they're just not. They're not. Nobody can root for them. Like they're just a laughing stock of the NHL. But back to chess for a bit. Let's not get too sidetracked by all of this. So here, after castles, I was looking for something to play besides d5. So a5 is another idea. Queen e2, rook d1. a5 here probably doesn't make a lot of sense because black can just play knight c6. At a6, he can maybe even take, or maybe just play something like knight b4 here, and after takes. He covers the d5 square several times. And the bishop covers d5 as well. So for that reason, a5, a6 looks a little bit suspect. Maybe you can play queen a4 as well, but after knight b4, knights are going to d5. Black has bishop d7, c6 to put pressure on the knight on f3 here. Thank you, Chess, for rating with a party of 509. Thank you so much, everyone who's coming here from the Chess channel. So those of you who are watching the bullet played, thank you all for coming over here. I think Faruja won, and is it Andrew in second and Duda on third? I don't know the exact qualification, but at any rate, I hope you guys are having a wonderful afternoon. Following the bullet chess, and now here watching me analyze my games from the United States Chess Championship here at the end. So someone else also said, why those weird locations on Twitter timetable? Because the start of this week was on Monday, and Monday was April 1st. Hello, Danny Wrench. It's good to see you. Danny, on behalf of everyone here with the chess community, I'd just like to wish you all the best on your move to TBS from chess.com. We're all going to miss you, but you've done wonders for chess.com, and we hope you do well in your new career over at TBS. So thank you so much for all the love, Danny. So, okay, so I'm an idiot. I just got trolled. Okay, lovely. How exciting. Somebody can clip that anyway and send it to good old Danny. Danny will definitely feel the love. At any rate, back to the chess. So as I was saying, or not the chess, but back to the schedules. I was saying, so April 1st. April April 1st was the start of the week. It was Monday, so I decided to have some fun with my schedule, and therefore I put the time zones of Yakutsk and Tucumán, as well as the time in Hawaii as well. So for that reason, it was April 1st. I figured it made some sense to have some fun. Why not? Yeah. So all right, you guys. So back to the game of chess. This lovely game of chess. So after castles, here I played d5. So here I played d5. Basically, the other idea was to play queen e2, but after knight c6, rook d1, knight b4. It's I think black is okay, and obviously Sam was very prepared for this line. What is that ding? Yes, that is that is something related to, yes, WhatsApp, related to separate business stuff that I have to deal with. So I'll close it and get back to that later. But anyway, what is wrong with bishop f4 here? Bishop f4 here is playable. Black just goes knight d5 and then bishop d7, bishop c6. Or black can play black can also just play like bishop f6 and bishop d6 as well. Black should be fine here. Johnny Cashwell says, Hikaru, why not any NBA cap? Because the only team that I liked for a long time was the New York Knickerbockers, and the New York Knickerbockers are the worst team in the NBA. They have the single worst owner in any major sport, I believe. So that is why I will not wear any basketball caps. Yeah, I mean, am I from New York? I grew up in New York, so yes, I am from New York. Zion is coming soon. Knicks will be good again. Yeah, I mean, the Knicks of the 90s were amazing. I love the Knicks of the 90s. You had Ewing, you had Oakley, John Starks. I mean, Anthony Mason. Those guys were amazing. Those guys were the OGs. Super Cyan says White Plains for the win. Indeed, indeed. But yeah, so all right, you guys. So back to the game. I considered all these ideas: queen e2, rook d1, a5. Didn't like them. d5 is obviously the most natural move here because you figure you've got an ISO pawn. You obviously want to get rid of the ISO. And so for that reason, I did play d5. Here, Sam took. I took. Takes. Played knight d7 almost instantly. His wall is made of basketball. That's enough. Good one. Good one. So here I played h3. Now the main thing here that white has to deal with is where is black's knight going? It's going to c5, b6, or is it even going to f6 as well? So for that reason, I wasn't 100% sure where the knight was going, and so I thought, if we look at this rationally, there are probably a couple of candidate moves. There's a5 to go a6, take advantage of this diagonal. That's one option. There's h3, so that when the knight hits the bishop on b6 or f6, there's no bishop g4. There also are moves like bishop f4, bishop e3, or rook e1. So let's go by this move by move. The first thing that white can do here is try a5 to go a6 to take advantage of this rook being on a8 and the underdevelopment. But now black can play knight f6 to hit the bishop. I have to move the bishop to probably c4. b3 is okay as well, but it looks a little bit awkward in front of this b2 pawn. Guillotine King says, I was under the impression you were from Seattle. No, I lived in Seattle for a year. I also spent time in Vancouver, British Columbia, greatest city in the world, I might add. But I am not from Seattle. I'm not from Seattle. I lived there for a short period of time. Yeah, so Cupcake says, oh, oops, tried to W with you yesterday to say thanks. Your security guards were a little rough. Are you talking about St. Louis or somewhere else? I don't know. Anyway, Stoka says, if it's the Grace, why'd you only live there for a year? Well, Vancouver is obviously not in the United States of America. It is a part of Canada. That's the first thing. So that's the first reason. The second reason is Vancouver is extremely expensive as well. Thank you, PhotoChess, for rating with a party of 66. Thank you so much to Miss Maria Emilianova for the raid. Another person, journalist, photographer who started streaming recently, should definitely check out her stream if you have the chance. So there are a few things. It was very expensive, and it's gotten more expensive since I was there. Ifago 0, no, I'm not talking about Vancouver, Washington. We're talking about Vancouver, British Columbia. But those were the main reasons. If you live in Canada, you could become a chess bra, though. Yeah, I'd rather stick a fork in my eye than be a chess bra. So a5, knight f6, bishop c4. I thought that Sam could play bishop g4 here, or even probably trade and then go bishop g4. And if I take on f3, I end up with double f pawns. And after like rook c8 coming next move, like if I play bishop e3, it looks very nice with the two bishops. But I feel that objectively, after something like a6 or even just rook c8 first, rook c8, bishop f1, bishop c5, black should always be okay here. Bishop h3, just rook c6. And I've got two bishops, but I have double pawns. These pawns on a7 and b7 are not weak because the knight covers the entry point on d7 here. So for that reason, I didn't like this idea where black can play bishop g4 and try to take the knight on f3 here. So for that reason, I did not like a5. So a5 is option 1. I didn't like a5 here. So a5 is option 1 I didn't like. Now h3 is what I played. So a5 and h3 are two obvious moves. Now I was thinking, what other moves are there here? There's bishop e3 and there's also bishop f4. There's also maybe queen b3 or queen c2. Queen b3 makes no sense because obviously black then shifts plan and plays knight c5, queen c4, and bishop e6. Thank you, Penguin GM1, for rating with a party of 279. So here, after bishop e6, if I trade, black just takes, goes rook c8, bishop c5, queen b6. Pawn on a4 and b2 can be a long-term issue for me because I can't really push the pawns up the board very quickly. So for that reason, queen b3 is no good. Now, so we've looked at a5. h3 is what I played. Obviously, queen b3 is no good. Queen c2 is another move that I can play here as well. Now, queen c2 was one of the moves that I thought was probably most natural. But again, the same basic idea with knight f6. If I move my bishop to c4, I think black can play, maybe bishop g4 is not right here. What did I see actually after queen c2? Let me think for 1 second, try to remember what I saw during the game. Was it knight f6 or knight b6? Let me try to remember. I think actually, yeah, so knight f6, bishop c4, maybe bishop g4, and if knight e5, rook c8, although that looks a little bit suspect. Could have also been just knight c5. Queen c2, actually, trying to remember why I discarded queen c2. Actually, maybe black can just play knight e5. Actually, yeah, black can play knight e5 here. White takes queen d5. Black's got two bishops here. He's going to go bishop f5 once the knight moves. No threats on the diagonal anymore, and black's clearly better here. Loft of the Boff says, I'm from Denmark and I love your stream. It's almost 11 p.m. my time. Just want to say congrats for the championship. Thank you so much. Loft of the Boff. Thank you so much. Thank you, Cupcake, for being the troll. I know Andrew does not say that. Andrew's a great player. Really, actually, quite talented. I don't know how far he could go, but if he focused a little bit more on serious chess, he could probably get to like 2550, 2600, I would think, without too much work. Yeah, Andrew's a great guy. So after knight e5 here, I should probably play something like rook d1, but after knight f3 takes in queen, I guess a5 or b6. I'm guessing a5 here, black should be okay. If bishop d2, there's always something like bishop f5, or even something like queen. Maybe not. Maybe even bishop b4 here. Actually, bishop b4 looks good to trade. Queen b4. And now black can play bishop e6 and rook c8 or rook d8. Again, these pawns on a4 and b2 are slightly misplaced since nothing is hanging right away on b7 or a7. So for that reason, it's not the only reason, but I was very unsure about queen c2. I think there's also maybe queen a5 here to hit the bishop. Yeah, queen a5, and if rook d1, there's knight f6 here as well. Sorry, not bishop f6, knight f6, and bishop c4, then bishop g4. Again, there's a pin on the knight on f3. Thank you, Goldust Tori, for giving us up to Penguin GM1. No, I'm not roasting Andrew. Andrew is a great player. I think he could get to 2550 or 2600 if he focused more on classical chess. I don't think that's not roasting him at all. He's very talented, very talented, much more talented than someone like Amon, for example. Thank you, Chessbait, for gifting a sub to Jaren is caring. So for that reason, I did not like Queen C2. I thought there were various ideas. Other moves that are playable here is like Bishop E3. But again, I think Black can play Knight F6, and after like Bishop C4, Queen D1, Rook F D1 is the same thing. Black just goes Bishop G4 again and just trades on F3. And again, Bishop F3, Rook C8 is coming, Bishop C5, very similar to the other line. And I just wasn't thrilled by this in general terms. So I didn't really like Bishop E3, which means the only other move is Bishop F4. But again, after Knight F6, it's very similar. If I go Bishop B3, I think Black can play like Queen B6 maybe, or again, Black can maybe just play even something like Bishop G4, Queen D8, Rook D8, Knight E5, Bishop E6, and with these pawns here, after takes, Black's got a weakness on E6. But with these pawns here, Black can go Rook D4, B4, put a knight on B4. E6 is not really weak because the king can always support the pawn. So for that reason, I was very uninspired by any of this, unsurprisingly, which is why I chose not to do this. So if you think about this logically now, in terms of the approach you use when you're calculating, if you go back to the start of this position, so I saw A5, Bishop F4, Bishop E3, H3, obviously, like Queen B3 and Queen C2. And when you see all these moves, when you see all these moves and you're trying to come up with what makes the most sense, on some level you figure Knight F6 is going to be played no matter what. So playing H3 has a lot of logic to it because it always stops Bishop G4, and the bishop is much stronger on G4 than F5 because on F5 I can always move my knight to E5 and put pressure on F7. So Sam played Knight F6. I played Bishop C4. Here he played B6. So now I played Queen to B3 again, trying to figure out what the best candidate moves are. So one move is Queen B3. I can also try Bishop E3, Bishop E3, Bishop E3, Bishop F4, or Bishop G5 as well. So all three of these squares are available. I can always move the queen to B3 or C2. The last question is, do I want to exchange queens on D1? That's the last question here. So for that reason, I thought for quite a while and played Queen B3. So now let's try to understand why I did Queen B3. The reason I did Queen B3 is because if I played Bishop, let's say G5, for example, Black can play H6. I obviously don't want to trade because then the bishop gets to F6 and hits the pawn on B2. Bishop H4. Then Black can play Bishop to B7. So Bishop B7. Here I can play Knight to E5 or Queen B3 again. But if I trade queens, the benefits, there aren't really benefits here because Black controls the C and D files. He can also go Bishop D5. He can also go Knight D5 as well, or even Bishop takes F3 potentially. And I really need to get something to the 7th rank to create threats against the bishops and pawns. And in this position, that's just not going to happen. So for that reason, I didn't like Bishop G5. So let's look at Bishop F4, next move. If Bishop F4, I think Black can play Bishop B7 here. If I go Queen B3, Black plays Bishop D5. Very, very similar to the game, actually, here where Black tries to exchange this very nice looking bishop on C4. So, and actually, Queen B3 does transpose into the game as well. If Bishop E3, Bishop B7, it's the same thing. Black can always go Bishop D5, try to exchange the bishops. Can play Queen takes D8 as well, but again, you really want to keep queens on the board because the advantage White has here is something here or something along the E3 A7 diagonal, or something along the B3 G8 diagonal, one of the two. So that's sort of really what's going on here, is what does White want to do? So I thought Queen B3 made the most sense because first of all, I put pressure on the diagonal. Secondly, I clear the D1 square for my rook. But unfortunately, Sam played bishop b7 here, which was a very good move. And now I played bishop f4, allowing bishop d5. And at this point, the game is already very close to equal. So let's review other options here that white has. Another option white has here is rook to d1. But the problem with rook d1, as I recall, I think was queen c7. And now black's threatening to take on f3 because I can't take with the queen because I would hang the bishop on c4. So I would probably have to move, if I move the bishop to say e2, I've moved it off this diagonal, and then after rook d8, black is completely fine. If I try knight g5, also logical to put pressure on the pawn on f7 here, then black can just move the bishop to sidestep everything, and he protects the pawn 3 times here. And also he puts both bishops on this very long diagonal, and queen c6 and queen g2 is a huge threat as well. So for that reason, I didn't like rook d1. I thought after queen c7, it's starting to get very double-edged. Wasn't bishop g5 interesting to stop bishop d5? You mean bishop g5 here? Bishop g5 here, black still can play bishop d5, I believe, and it does not. There's no difference because if I take on f6, black takes. If I take the bishop, black takes, and now he's got a good bishop. If I play bishop takes e7, he can just take and play rook fd8. And again, with the bishop on b3, just rook c8, rook c2, or rook d2, he also controls the d1 square as well. So black is completely fine here. Twitch Railbird says, so for that reason, I'm out. Yeah, someone said that the other day, actually, that I was starting to sound like I'm like Mark Cuban or somebody on the Shark Tank. So yeah, so here after a long think, I decided, you know what? If Sam plays bishop d5, so be it. It's probably going to be a draw, but at least there's no risk, because there is serious risk here in this line, because this looks so good for white. But again, the pawn's on a4, not a3, so ideas of b4 are never realistic, and there are just these massive threats on both these diagonals. So like the bishop on c4 looks good, but both of black's bishops are much more powerful in this position than white's bishops here. So yeah, I have to be very careful here not to lose. Johnny Cashfell says get a Mavs cap. I do like the Mavericks, actually. I mean, huge Dirk fan. My trainer is from Dallas. Dallas is one of my favorite cities in the US to go visit. Just a fantastic place to be. So yeah, maybe I'll get a Mavs cap, maybe. Especially with Porzingis and Luka Doncic. Both those guys are amazing. So yeah, I do like Dallas. I do like the Mavs. So maybe I'll don a Mavericks cap soon enough. So all right. Yeah, Doncic is amazing. He's gonna be rookie of the year. He's so much better than that clown Trae Young. Is that the guy? I forget. I think it's Trae Young. But yeah, Luka Doncic is he's the real deal. Someone says, can I dunk? I can't dunk. I'm not tall enough. I can shoot threes decently, but I can't dunk. So I played bishop f4. Sam played bishop to d5 here. Giannis or Harden for MVP? Of course it's got to be Giannis. Go Bucks. Go Wisconsin. So here Sam played bishop d5 to exchange the bishops. Now I played rook fe1. The idea behind rook e1 is I want to put pressure on the bishop, but I also want to move the rook off of f1 as well. So I figure in this position the ideal squares, so if we go back, the ideal squares are rook. Do I want the rooks on e1 and d1? Do I want the rooks on c1 and d1? This is the other question here. Which do I want it on c1 and d1, or do I want d1 and e1? It's not an obvious question, but the problem here is that if I play something like rook c1 first, black can then play rook c8, forcing me to exchange the bishops now on d5. Because after takes queen d5, black is completely fine here. Again, with black getting the rook on c8, I can never really double or anything and take advantage of this open file. Logically speaking as well, I can't ever take the d file because black can go knight d7. What does rook c1 do? Rook c1 does a few things. So now let's say black is not Sam Shankland, and black plays a bad move like bishop takes c4. After bishop takes c4, I can then play, let's say, queen c4, and now you see I'm getting pressure on the file. I can also play rook c4, rook c8, rook c1 as well. And basically what's happening here is that I'm going to gain control of the C file. So let's just assume we reach, I'm just going to make some instructive moves. We reach a position like this. I've got the rook on c7, I'm hitting the bishop, I'm hitting the pawn. So in this position, white is doing very well because the rook on the C file is penetrating. But if we go back, and let's just set up, what's another example? I'll just make some random moves. Let's just play like this. Or no, sorry, wrong exchange. Let's see. Okay, let's play queen d3, queen d8. Let's play this exchange. So here we have a similar position. Same thing, one set of rooks on the board, but the rook on the D file instead of the C file. Now here it's not as good because black can go rook c8 and he takes the C file, but the knight on f6 cuts off the d7 square. So I never have any access squares on the D file here because of the placement of the bishop and the knight. So if you use that logic, you have to go back and then reworking it. It's like, well, if you reach an endgame, you obviously need to win the C file because then you can enter on the 7th rank, whereas you can't enter on the 7th rank on the D file. Someone says, what is the rudest way to resign? Probably the rudest way to resign is just get up and knock all the pieces off the board. I don't know if people have actually done that, but I've heard some stories. But that would be the rudest way. So basically, this is why rook c1 makes some sense. You want to put the rook on c1 and take the C file if you can. Is this just intuition or you calculate this? It's a mix of everything. So you do your hard calculations in terms of what are the options. So you've got rook c1, rook d1, rook a d1, rook e1. Those are mainly you're going to move a rook somewhere here. So when you work through, or not work through, sorry, but when you come up with the calculations, then it's like, think about this, pieces are coming off the board here. So how can you ever get an ideal setup where you can win? You can always go rook d1. In fact, both rooks are playable. But then black takes on c4. I can't take the queen because my queen is hanging, so I take. He plays queen to c8, trying to exchange queens. And now, as an example, so let's say we reach this position. This looks terrible for black because you've got passive rooks. White's got an open D file. But again, with the knight on f6 and the bishop on e7, as they say in as Gandalf would say, you can't enter on the D file here. You shall not pass because the knight and the bishop just prevent any access on the D file. And so for that reason, black is completely fine here. So rook d1 is playable definitely, but after trades queen c8, let's say queen e2, black has a very nice move, queen to b7. Classic Gandalf, always mentioning the D file. Exactly, of course, that's totally Gandalf. So if I play queen e2, hitting the bishop, I want to go rook c1 and take everything away. But now black goes queen b7, and just like that, everything is gone. Because now, not only is black going to play rook c8, but he can also go rook e8, even bishop c5, because I never have b4. Maybe black can also play a5 to prevent it. And white just has no initiative whatsoever in this position. So it looks really, really good, but it's not. Yeah. So for that reason, I didn't like rook d1. I already explained rook c1, rook c8 is nothing. So I didn't like rook c1. I didn't like rook d1 either. Rook f d1, it doesn't make a difference. He can still trade. And actually, this is an even better example. So takes queen c8. If I play rook c1 here, black can trade. Looks like I'm doing great here. Getting the rook to c7, put pressure on all the pawns. Black goes rook to c8. Obviously, if I trade, again, same thing. No access on the D file. If I play rook c1, try to take the C file, which is what I always want to do here. Black trades and plays knight to d5. And so now if you think about it, the knight covers c7. It hits the bishop. If I ever move the bishop to like g3, black can very simply play. There are a couple ways to play here. But for example, I think black can even play something like bishop c5, just cutting off the C file. And then he goes rook e8 and takes the E file for himself. And tries to penetrate on the 7th rank here. So this is just one example. Black can also probably just play like rook e8 here because now the knight controls the square. If I go rook d4, then he goes back, and again, it's the good old you shall not pass here on either c7 or d7 because the knight just cuts you off on both squares. Thank you Zeter325 for subscribing with Prime. Yes, Mithrandir said that actually. Mithrandir. So there's no confusion between Gandalf and Gelfond. Mithrandir said, "You shall not pass." To the Balrog in Helm's no, it's not Helm's Deep, in the Mines of Moria. So yeah. So for that reason, it's a very tricky position. If I'm trying to get an advantage, it's very it's gonna be very minor, and it has to be like half a move or one move to get something going, because otherwise it's all gonna fizzle immediately. So that's why in this position I thought for a long time. John and me says, whoa, Hikaru with the loader knowledge. Yes, I've watched loader. In fact, there was before the last round game against Jeffrey, I was watching one of the scenes on YouTube on repeat, from the last movie, The Return of the King. Actually, I'll take care of that. Yeah, I was on the bridge. Khazad-dûm, right? I knew there was another name for the mines in Moria. Yeah, Khazad-dûm. I have not read loader in so long, but anyway, so bishop d5. So here, after a long thing, I didn't like rook c1. I didn't like rook d1. I thought rook e1 made sense because first of all, it develops the rook, it puts pressure on the bishop, and I can go rook d1. I'm gonna say basically 10 hours of Gandalf. Hikaru 64 Hearts says, Hikaru, I'm mute. Your comments are better than 31 years playing reading. Wow, thank you, Heart. So that's well, I are you saying you're muted? I don't know exactly what you're saying, but anyway, thank you for the compliment. Really appreciate it. Clousy Boy says 10 hours of Gandalf falls equals 10 hours of crying. No, isn't that Merry or Pippin? One of them is always crying when Gandalf falls to the base of the falls into hell or wherever it is. But anyway, all right. So after bishop d5, played rook e1, trying to hit the bishop on e7, develop the rook. Still play rook d1, rook c1. So here, Sam played rook e8, logical move as well. Rook e8, defend the bishop. Try to exchange a set of rooks because you know the more majors that come off, the less chances white ever has. Notice the bishop on f4 looks nice on this diagonal. Fragard says, Hikaru, why pay for Kasparov's masterclass when you can watch Hikaru stream? Yes, because like if black doesn't play rook e8 here, if black plays something like bishop e6, you go bishop e6, f6, queen e6, rook f7, knight e5, queen d5, queen f7 takes, king f7, rook c1. Boom, boom, boom. Black lost. Yes, game over. Black lost. Black lost. Yes. So anyway, there you go. There's my there's my little Gary bit. I don't know, in the preview for Gary's ad, did he say boom 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 or not? I'm not, maybe he didn't say boom, but I know there's a scene where Gary does an end game and it's like he makes like 5 moves in a row and it's like white lost, yes, white lost, yes. So anyway, you guys, but I don't remember if Gary said boom or not. I don't remember. Gary does say boom. He does say boom, so I'm not insane. Okay, so yeah. Anyway, so yeah, there was my little like 5 move Gary impression. Thank you, eBay Mom 1973, for subscribing with Twitch Prime. So yeah, so bishop 4, bishop d5. So here, yeah, I did play rook fe1. Sam played rook fe8. Now here I went into a deep pink again. Magnus, I can't really do a Magnus impression because Magnus is pretty cool and calm. Thank you, 9 Lives the 10th for or 9 Lives the 11th, I guess, for subscribing with Twitch Prime. Or no, 9th, the 9th, IX, not XI. So here I went to deep think because rook d1 looks logical, but again, after trade queen c8, the rooks on e1 and d1 look nice, but the rook on e8 sort of defends the bishop. The knight on f6 is a god here. It just controls the d7 square. So rook d1 doesn't really do anything. Rook c1 is playable too, but again, the problem here is after takes, queen takes c4, black can play, I think queen d5 is one option. I think black even doesn't have to take right away. He can maybe even just play can you play rook c8? Yes, actually black can play rook c8 as well, because if I take queen d5, if I play rook c8, that hangs the queen. I still get some compensation, but it should not be enough here. And if I trade queens and then take, notice the knight hits the bishop and it protects the bishop on e7. And if I move the bishop after maybe bishop g3, bishop f6, you'll notice the tide is completely turned here, because the bishop is hitting the pawn. Black controls the open c file, and this is really good for black now. So you have to be careful not to allow this to happen. The other way of playing is rook c8, rook c8, rook e5 to sort of put pressure on both the knight and the bishop on e7 here. But black can play rook d8, for example, and then bishop f6 next move. So if I move the bishop to d2, bishop f6, hit the rook, hit the pawn, and black's just doing really, really well here. Still analyzing first game. This 4 games will take a few hours, probably, yeah, because since I'm not in St. Louis and there aren't any games coming up in the next like 24 hours, I can afford to relax and go over these games in very, very deep manner. In fact, you know what? Maybe I'll take 24 hours on these 4 games. How would you guys like that? I'll analyze each one of these games for 6 hours. But if I did that, then again, if I tried doing that, I might even like lose my own mind and sanity and go insane. So that probably would not be a good idea. So yeah, so after Chess Bay says no. Hey, how's it going, LDS Jedi Knight? So anyway, back to the chess. So rook c1, bishop c4, and it takes. Well, actually, black probably should not take. Black should probably play rook c8 and try to force white to trade on d5. And I basically concluded there's, again, nothing here for white based on the rook placement, queen placement. Bishop on f4 looks nice, but it doesn't actually have any targets on the diagonal. So for that reason, I used a long time. Thank you, Tiga1305, for resubbing with Twitch Prime 2 months in a row. Losing in his mind equals universe implodes in a series of takes. Yes, takes, arrows, bishop g5, bishop takes e7. I want to trade rooks. I want to go rook d1, rook d7, put more pressure here. Maybe put pressure here with a5, ab6, ba7, maybe b7 at some point. Maybe some pressure on this diagonal. Maybe knight d4, maybe knight f5, knight d4, knight f5. Put pressure on g7 as well. Everything is so loose here. Maybe rook d7, rook d8. Black can play rook c8, rook c4, maybe rook e3, maybe rook e1. Try to put even more pressure. Thank you. There you go. That's what me losing my mind would look like, of course. Just all these arrows. More arrows. Yes. Anyway, so there we go. So rook e8, and boom, it's all gone. So after rook e8, so I thought for a long time here, because again, rook c1 and rook d1 are pretty much the only logical moves to be played here. Knox 510 says, can you remember all lines if you analyze it? I mean, all positions are in that special case, more or less unique or so, or do you just do it for better understanding playing such situations, even if you maybe never see a position again? Not sure I completely understand, but more or less in terms of analysis, generally it's raw analysis, just pure calculation, then trying to understand the piece placement and see if you can come up with configurations that make a lot of sense. Now, when I say that, I make it sound a lot easier than it really is, but it's along those lines. So, all right, you guys. So after rook e8, I thought for a long time. I played rook e5, and I decided here to shift the plan. So the reason I played rook e5 here is that I figure I force black to take on c4, which is what I want, but I also activate it so I can double the rooks on the e file. So now that I know that all these endgames with like rook c1, rook d1, and rook d7 are never realistically going to happen, where else? What else can I do? What other sort of setups or piece placement can I use? Thank you, ChessBay94, for gifting a sub to Calculated Blunder. What sort of piece setups can I use to put more pressure, even though black should be fine? I thought rook e5 made sense because after takes, which he played, let's say black plays bishop c5. Now with the queen on c4 instead of b3, I can always play b4 to hit the bishop, for starters. That's the first reason that this makes sense. Secondly, I also have threats on the diagonal. Knight g5 is playable because notice we put the rooks on the e file. So the rook is no longer on f8 protecting the pawn on f7. If black plays bishop d6, this is losing for black for a few reasons. First of all, I can play rook takes e8. Secondly, I can also play rook d5, but rook e8 should just be winning. Knight e8, bishop d5, bishop takes f4, bishop takes a8. That's a free exchange. If black plays queen takes e8, I can just take the bishop, and I'm simply up a piece here. So for that reason, black can't play bishop d6. He has to trade. And now here, Sam played queen d7. Other moves that are playable for black are bishop d6, but after bishop d6, I think rook d1 is quite strong. Now I'm threatening maybe to take the bishop on d6 and then trade on e8 because of the discovery from my bishop on f4 here. So this is number one. This is the first problem black has. If black plays rook c8 here, I think I can do a couple of things. So first of all, I can maybe play queen a6, queen d7, a5. Try to use this a file to my advantage, open up the a file and put pressure on the pawns here. Second possibility here is I can also just play the very routine queen b3, which looks weird, dropping the queen back to b3, but there's a lot of potency behind it because now I threaten rook d1. And you'll notice with the rook on e5, bishop on f4, rook d1 comes very close to trapping the queen, as it leaves only the c7 square available. So here if black plays bishop f8 and I play rook d1, black can pretty much resign, because if black takes the rook, I just take the queen, and then I take one of these rooks on c8 or e5. If black plays queen to c7 here, then I just play rook takes e8 and bishop takes c7, which is good. And so for that reason, black is just basically lost. If knight d7, I can play there must be a way to win here. Maybe if rook d5, maybe rook d5, knight c5, rook takes c5 wins. Again, queen protects the rook, and then I take the queen on d8. If black plays rook e7, I can just go queen d3, and the three heavies put too much pressure on this knight on d7, and this is also winning. Someone says, funny that takes guy would mock the boom 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 dude. Not mocking Gary. It's just I've seen that ad. I've seen that masterclass ad like 500 times, and it's always funny. So that's become ingrained in my memory. So for that reason, rook c8, queen b3 actually is very dangerous, because just like very simple, innocuous looking idea, rook d1. And there's a lot of pressure here. Black can maybe play queen c7, but now after rook e1 again with this bishop and these rooks, there are a ton of threats here on the e file. The queen is under pressure on c7 as well. So for that reason, there is serious risk for black. That's why Sam correctly played queen d7, understanding that even if I get rook d1 or rook e1, if he can shuffle the queen to b7, the queen will protect f7, and then he can always move the bishop to f8 or c5, and he should be doing fine. Thank you, Adubulus, for resubbing 3 months in a row. Cupcake says, your thoughts on butter coffee? You mean like bulletproof coffee? Haven't had much bulletproof coffee, but it's supposed to have some health benefits. I don't really know if I buy into it, and for that reason, I'm not drinking bulletproof coffee anytime soon, and I'm out. So all right, so queen c4, queen d7 was played, as I pointed out. If I play queen e2 here, black can just go bishop f8, and again, everything fizzles so fast because a4 is a target, so I can't really play rook d1. If I trade rooks, black just takes, and these pawns are just so solid here on a7 and b6 that if anyone's better here, it's got to be black. Alleviation says, you seem more awake today. I'm relatively awake. I only got like 3 hours of sleep last night because I was having nightmares about my 54 and Puzzle Rush, but yes, I do feel a little bit better today than I did yesterday. Hikaru deserves to be world champion at least once. That would be nice. But in all fairness, as good of a player as I am at chess, there are other people who I think were better during their time, relatively speaking, than I am now, who should have been world champion and didn't make it. So so thank you for the nice comment. But really, I mean, if people like Keres and Korchnoi couldn't become world champion, then if I don't become world champion, that's just how it goes. The players I'm referring to, I would say definitely the best player to never become world champion would be Paul Keres, the Estonian legend. And then after him would be Viktor Korchnoi, who came so close in Baguio in 1978. Both of those guys should have become world champion. Keres especially, phenomenal player. So all right, queen c4, queen d7. Idea to put the queen on b7 and then put the rooks on c8 or d8, maybe bishop f8, but mainly just avoid any threats on the d file and just put the queen on b7 where it's tucked away very, very nicely. So queen d7, I thought for a long time here I could have played rook e1, but there is one slight issue here, which is that here black can maybe play rook c8, hitting the queen. If I go rook takes e7, black goes rook takes c4, takes knight d7, and I'm just down in exchange here. If I play queen b3, now the drawback to having the rook on e5 is now black can play bishop d6, hitting the rook. I can't move the rook to either square to protect the bishop, so I'd have to play rook d1. But now after black plays queen c6, if I take rook e8, knight e8 takes, knight d6, even with the queen against the 2 rooks, black should be completely fine here. So for that reason, there is some hidden danger behind rook e1 as well. So that's why instead I decided to play bishop e3, remove the bishop from this diagonal where it's doing nothing. Now with the bishop on e3, I want to go a5 and try to put maximum pressure on these pawns. Use the rooks on e5 and a1 as well. Maybe b4, b5, queen a6, knight d4, knight d5. Even queen b5 and knight c6 or queen c6 makes sense. So for that reason, there is some serious risk here for black if he's not careful. But Sam correctly played bishop to d6 here. I played rook takes e8. If I play rook d1 again, black can maybe take the rook for starters, but he can also play something very chill like queen c7, queen takes c7, bishop c7, rook e8, and this is no different than before where I have no entrance squares. The bishop now on c7 covers both these squares. Black can maybe play rook d8 at some point. The knight covers d7, and black is again completely fine. Maybe rook e4, rook takes a4, or rook b4, rook takes b2. So for that reason, arrowing to e6 for no reason. Indeed, old hunter. I was just trying to make the art look slightly more beautiful. I think some artists would appreciate the extra arrow thrown in there on e6. So all right, so rook d1 was possible, but I felt that with the rook on a1 here, the bishop on e3, the most logical idea is to trade and play queen b5. Now if he takes, I take and try to put a knight on c6. So let's say black takes, goes bishop b8, I go knight d4, plop the knight on c6, put massive pressure on a7 and b6 here. And this could be very dangerous for black. Even after knight d5, knight c6, knight e3, fe3, if black tries bishop g3, I can probably play rook a7 because of the back rank mate here, and I'm up a pawn. If black doesn't do anything, let's just say it plays h5, I can go king f2, h4, king f3, and you'll notice the bishop here is stuck because it has to protect. The knight is eyeing both the pawn and the bishop. Rook to a7 as well. The rook can't come to e5 because he needs to protect the bishop on b8. So there are no real entrance squares. I can go rook a4, rook e4, rook d4, rook d7, even rook d1, rook d7, rook b7 to put pressure. And mainly, there are going to be massive threats here against which black probably can't defend. So for that reason, Sam did not trade. In fact, here Sam played a very good move, I would say. I'm sure it's not the top computer choice, but it's a very good practical decision. Sam played bishop to b8 here. So here I played queen takes d7, which is probably most logical. I could have tried to keep the game going, something like takes, rook c1. Sorry, queen d7 is the correct. Knight d7. Could have played rook c1. Sam and I discussed this after the game. And here, but the problem here with rook c1 is, you see, again, it's a very strange position conceptually because I want to go rook c7. Bishop looks passive, knight looks passive, but I still have no access to the 7th rank here. So for that reason, black is completely fine. I think black can just play knight e5 here. If I trade knights after takes, let's say b3, just probably f5 and just try to bring the king close. Again, no access to the 7th rank, so white can never really be better here. So for that reason, after knight e5, I try knight d4. I think knight d3, rook c2. Someone says a5 instead of rook c1. a5 is what I played in the game, so we'll get to that shortly. Rook c2, I think black can play bishop e5. Again, pressure on the pawn. Knight c5 is coming. Still no access to c7 because there never will be any, and black should be okay here. So for that reason, I didn't like rook c1. Knight d4 also doesn't make sense. Someone says you're only 31. Yeah, I'm 31 right now. I'm getting old, but still, I'm trying to play young man chess. So after knight d7 here, I played a5, trying to continue the logical theme and plan of the bishop came to e3. Let's use this diagonal to my advantage here. But unfortunately, Sam had calculated all this when he went into his 30 move tank before he played bishop b8, and he correctly concluded that after takes, rook a5, knight to e5, black is completely fine. And now the problem here is if I trade, I can't take the pawn at a7 because this pawn hangs on b2 and it would be a draw. If I move my knight to say d4, then black gets knight c4, hitting the rook and the bishop, and black's fine. If I play knight to d2, for example, there are a couple ways black can play here. I think knight d3 is fine, but even knight c6 here looks fine. If rook a6, knight b4, rook a5 to cut off knight d5, but now black can play knight c6 and maybe make a draw, or go through the back door and hit the bishop on e3, threaten rook e1 with the bishop covering the h2 square. So black's completely fine here as well. Double haste is Naka looks like he's in his 40s, but it's like one of those 40-year-olds that looks like he's in his 30s. Does that make logical sense? I'm a little confused by that, but anyway. Satan Sarkhan says, why isn't it a draw? Well, the game did end in a draw, so it is a draw. So 95 was a very good move by Sam. I can also, or no, I can't play bishop a7 because here black has very annoying knight c6, hitting the rook and hitting the bishop. Did I actually think through all this in the game? Yes, of course I did. I mean, this analysis I'm doing right now is based off of my memory from the games. I have not looked at it with the engines yet. I mean, not in depth at least. I have looked a little bit because obviously this could happen in a later round, but I have not looked. I've not looked super deep. Satan Sarkhan says he reads chat. I think me reading chat is what makes it so unique, actually. But yeah, I do read chat. Sarkhan. So random name 993 says you probably lose some of your memory of the game. Yeah, I lose some thoughts. Like I'm sure earlier when I was talking about rook e1 with rook d1. Or not rook d1, sorry, even earlier than that when I was talking about this bishop f4 or these queen b3 and bishop g5 ideas, that I'm forgetting something that I saw during the game. Yeah, Cheese MH as a streamer reading his chat. How quaint. It's quaint is not the right word to use. Quaint implies that I'm like some kind of old-fashioned weirdo who doesn't know anything, so quaint would not be the right word. I do it for you guys, the fans. Try to have some interaction. So all right, so bishop a7 makes very little sense here. I can also maybe try like rook a6, but after takes rook e7, I can't claim an advantage. Double f pawns. Worth noting, even this position with takes rook b8 is also a very easy draw for black. Rook a2, rook b3, double f pawns, passive rook stuck guarding the pawn. I can never run my king because then the whole king side falls, so this would be a draw. So rook a6 doesn't make sense. So I did take, he took, and now I played rook a1. Rook a6 is probably a better try, but again, here I think black has to be a touch careful. Rook b5 I think is bad because of bishop a. Oh no, rook b5 is fine. Sorry, because of bishop a7. Black goes rook takes b2, and if I try rook c6 to get the back rank mate like h6 check, king h7, rook b8, winning a piece, this doesn't work. Because if I play rook c6, I run into rook b1, and I actually get mated first because the bishop covers the escape square. And after rook c1 is checkmate, simply because I can't move my king. So that's why bishop takes a7, rook b2 just leads to a draw, because then I would have to trade. And after rook b8, no back rank threats, 3 against 3. Very simple draw here. So thank you, Oakleus, for resubbing 4 months in a row. So I see Chesbay just sent me a message. She's like, how much caffeine did you have? You're like coked up to the max. I had a fair amount of caffeine before I did the stream, you guys. Yeah. All right, you guys. So this is why if rook b5, bishop takes a7. If bishop a7, rook b2, and black's fine. If I play rook to c6 here, black can just play h6, and if rook c8, king h7, rook protects the bishop. Rook protects the pawn on b2, and I guess I can try bishop d4, but after rook d5, I can't move the bishop because of the same back ranker trick. If rook b8 is rook d4, rook b7, f6 takes, rook d1, king h2, rook d2. Hits the pawns both on f2 and b2, and again, this will be a very simple draw. So there should be fine. 1 second, you guys. So here black is completely fine. So if we go back a couple of moves, rook c6 makes no sense. Bishop a7 makes no sense. Bishop d4, rook d5 makes no sense. So this is already very drawish. So I tried to go for one last trick with rook a1, but here Sam correctly did not play rook b5. So you'll notice after rook a1, rook b5, black in fact loses here, because after bishop, or not loses, because bishop a7, black can play an endgame with takes and just like g6, and this should be a draw. Or h5 is more precise. h5, rook a2, h4. and black draws. But black doesn't even have to really allow this. Although if bishop a7, black plays rook b2, black loses because now rook c1 is winning the same back rank idea mate. If h6, just check king h7, rook b8. You'll notice here black can't go rook b1 and checkmate me because my rook cuts off the back rank here. So now rook c8 is a very serious threat. And if black plays bishop d6, I play rook c8, bishop f8, bishop to c5, and now after check just king h2 because there's no bishop on the diag, and now I just win the bishop on f8. So this is game over. But here Sam correctly played h5, and now here I played king to f1. So if I play bishop takes a7 here, then black can play bishop a7, rook a7, and after rook to e1, white goes king h2, and black plays rook e2. Same ideas with the other line, hitting both pawns on f2 and b2, and so the game would be drawn here. So for that reason I played king f1. Here Sam played rook b5 though, and also one last little trick I have is I can play b4 here, hoping that black goes rook b5 to hit the pawn, and after bishop c5, the bishop guards the pawn, keeps an eye on this pawn, and after rook b7, I can go king f1, try to run the king up, put the rook on a6, keep these pieces very passive on b7 and b8. Thank you, Hikaru, for resubbing 2 months in a row. Never talking on the chat, but I always enjoy your streams. Thank you, Hikaru. Thank you. Toys. Gandalf, Macarena, Hikaru. Thank you, toys. Anyway, so b4, rook b5, bishop c5, rook b7, king f1. This too should be a draw, but if I get the king in with this passive pawn, getting a pawn going up the board, there could be some threats for white. Unfortunately, after b4, black can play rook e4. If I play b5 here, black can play rook to b4, hitting the pawn. Again, I can't go b6 because black takes, and if I go rook a8, same problem, same back rank checkmate coming up here. So I can't go b6 here. Have a good evening, Frank Rutten. I can always just trade the bishops. This is always just a draw. So b5 doesn't work. If I try rook b1, then black can play a6, fixing my pawn on the dark square so we can always target it, whereas my bishop can never target this pawn on a6 here. So for that reason, rook b1 also draws. Bishop c5 is the last try to support the pawn, but the same issue arises. Black goes bishop e5. Again, I can't take because of rook e1 checkmate. And after rook to b1, black can play a6 again, followed by bishop c3, and my bishop can never attack his pawn, and this is just going to be a very routine draw here. So for that reason, I decided to play king f1, but Sam correctly found rook b5. Now I took. If I play rook a2, black can just play bishop e5, and I can't really protect the pawn on b2, so I would have to take, and after rook b2 takes, bishop b2. This also is a draw. So here I played bishop takes a7, basically conceding that there were no winning chances remaining anymore. Someone says f3 after bishop e5. After bishop e5 in which line? Maybe somewhere in this line? Maybe, I don't know which position you're referring to. So rook e4, rook b1, a6. Maybe, you mean this one, f3? Yes, I can play f3. Actually, it's worth noting, first of all, black can play rook b4 and draw, but it's worth noting all these endgames are a draw too, because my pawn is on dark square, his pawn is on the light square. So, and so for that reason, black can just go f6, king f7, king e6, king d7, king c6, and this, with the pawns on these squares, so let's go back. Let's say we reach, let me set up another endgame. Let's just say we reach this endgame, for example. Let's just set this up. If we reach this endgame, this should also still be a draw, but you'll notice the difference here. So my pawn is on a light square, and my bishop attacks his pawn. His bishop cannot attack my pawn on c5 because it's on a light square. So if we reach this endgame, it's still a draw probably, but there is risk for black here. So now if we go back to this position after f3, takes a6, you'll notice here my pawn is on a dark square and his pawn is on a light square, so it's just a very easy draw for black here, which is why in the game king f1, rook b5, I finally decided enough is enough, and and I decided to just take, play rook a7, and after rook takes b2 here, we agreed to a draw, and so that was the end of this 8th round game against Sam.